Weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. Today is Wednesday, May the 1st. I'm meteorologist Jeff Forrester, joined by Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. Hey Mark.
Good morning, Jeff. It's just the guys, isn't it, for now?
We might have a late edition.
A surprise. We might have a special guest star coming up. Well, not really.
Katie's having some computer issues. This is week 2, so we'll see if the engineers or the IT can help her out.
She's got the engineers involved. I also noticed when I look at myself, not only is it early, but I got a new light up here, these bright halogen lights. I think I'm a little blown out here, so I need my other light a little closer. But if you're listening to the audio only like I do, it's like, it's fine.
Yeah. If you're just listening, you can't see Mark, you can't see me. You're just waiting for some weather information, right?
Here we go.
Yeah, we've got a packed podcast, episode 99. We're getting close to the big 100, so that'll be exciting. We'll have to plan something special for that. We're kind of brainstorming a little bit. But what do we have in store for today? Well, we just wrapped up the month of April. Technically, it was warmer and drier than normal, but it didn't feel that way the way it ended. So we'll kind of go through those numbers. We've been seeing some late season snow, which has been greatly beneficial. We're going to have some pictures and we'll have some stats and things like that to show you. The unsettled pattern continues, though. It's going to probably carry into at least maybe the first week, if not a little bit longer, first week of May. I think the first maybe 8 to 9 days or so before things start to change a little bit.
Agreed.
Adios El Nino, Mark?
Yeah, looks like El Nino's going away.
Yeah, I think
it's not gone yet, but we'll cover it in great detail.
That out? Do you like how I wrote that out in the bullet points there?
Yeah, how did I don't even know how to do those special characters.
Well, I had the Enye and Nino, El Nino, and then I was like, we've got to put adios in there, and then all of a sudden I was like, we got to add the question marks.
Right.
I went all in on that one. If you're listening, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's okay. It's all right. And then we have a couple of viewer photos to show you. I love the fact that the weather geeks out there, along with us, send in the photos, and the best way to do that, of course, is on our website or one of our weather apps or one of our apps, news app or weather app. So we'll show you those at the end of the podcast. But yeah, there's a lot to go over. So let's get this party started, Mark. Boy, we experienced quite the up and down, or the seesaw, the roller coaster ride of an April, which is fairly typical, right?
Yeah. So it's rare that I take. Well, I was going to say it's rare that I take a lot of vacation time, but some would disagree. But I was going to say, just by chance, I had like that first week or so, about the first week of April off. So I missed the nice warm 78. And then I missed all that cool wet stuff, that high of 49 on the 4th. Okay, so it's cool. Then I come back. It's kind of warm and dry, which was nice. I leave again. Just by chance, I had these 2 1-week vacations lined up. And then I missed almost all that sunshine and warmth, the 71 on the 22nd, the 78 on the 23rd. And I come back on Friday and it's cool and showery. And look at that. The coolest day, yesterday, Tuesday, the 30th, that was the coolest day in 3.5 weeks. And it felt like it, didn't it?
That was brutal. I mean, of course, like the weather geek in me knows we need the rain, we need the mountain snow, but it was brutal. Yeah, it was a tough day. Downpours, some isolated storms out there. And
at least it's not, even if we have a cool and showery pattern in April or May. I mean, honestly, is it really cold? No. You get a sunbreak and suddenly it feels fine. So it wasn't. Yeah, it's cool for this time of the year. And like you said, we definitely needed the rain.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we played a little catch up really quick for the listeners out there not watching the video portion. The warmest days were 78 and 78. That was
twice.
April 2nd and April 23rd. So we have yet to reach the 80s. Typically, on average, that happens in early May, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. And it looks like it's actually probably going to arrive maybe mid-May or so, which I'll show you why I think that, Mark. Coming up in a bit.
I was going to say last year, remember we had an 88 right around the 26th or the 27th. We had an 88 and an 85. So it got crazy. Even though last year, we're going to see this, I think, coming up, but last year, it was extremely wet April, but yet we had some 80s at the end of the month. So it can happen.
And then coolest days, upper 40s, April 4th, and 55 was the high on the last day of April. So let's take a look at how the rainfall, by the way, really quick to go back, when you average the highs and lows together, this April, we ran a degree and a half above a typical April. So nothing too unusual about the month of April.
Wasn't March similar? I think it was slightly warm in March.
Yes. Yeah. It wasn't like abnormally warm.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So rainfall, we started off the first week of April was pretty wet. And then middle of the month, the heart of the month was just pretty bone dry.
Look at that. 2 weeks, over 2 weeks with pretty much no rain.
Yeah. April 8th to April 24th, we picked up a total of 0.02 of an inch of rain at PDX. But then, the rain turned back on. The faucet turned back on, if you will. And we went 6 days in a row with measurable rain, the wettest being April 25th. We picked up over 0.5 inch of rain.
And we should point out, as always, these stats are from PDX. And PDX, and we've shown this in the past, the PDX and then around Hillsborough are about the driest parts of the metro area. So I had people say, no, I've had a lot more than that. And that is true. I think I've had 4 inches or so at my house, far east, well, kind of metro, but way east side. So it's very possible, even though PDX has had 1.8 inches, you may have had 2.5 or 3.0 at your house, east metro, or maybe some of the hills around town. So drier stats typically.
And if you're curious, like how the microclimates play out in the metro area, hop on Mark's Twitter page, Twitter X. I don't even know. You may have posted it on Facebook too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I usually post on both.
So he posted like the average rainfall that we see depending on your location in the metro area, and it varies quite a bit. Topography plays a huge role in how much rain we see. So in a typical April at PDX, we pick up just under 3 inches of rain. We ended up with a little over 1 3/4 of an inch of rain. So a little bit drier than normal. I just figured for the last 6 days.
Look at those numbers are so small. It's early in the day.
I know. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry. Last 6 days were wet in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington. So I just wanted to show you that there were some significant precipitation totals in the Cascades and the Coast Range. Some of those orange and red numbers, if you can't read them, they came in around 3 to 4, even close to 5 inches of rain in some cases.
Did you know you can? I'm not ripping on you, Jeff, but did you know there is an option?
Those?
Yeah, I only found that in the last few months. Did you know there's an option on the right side? You can make it bigger.
I think I knew that, but
you were busy.
I forgot. Yeah,
it's fine.
So, and this is why we wear glasses. So
I was just going to say, maybe the old guy should be wearing glasses.
Maybe.
I mean, me. Okay. Looks good, though. Yeah, you can really see the orographic effect. Look how mountains on both sides of us are much wetter. When people complain about rain in Portland or in the lowlands, it ain't nothing compared to what happens around us in the rainforests.
Right. Absolutely. So this was a drier than normal April. It was not nearly as dry, though, as back in 2021 or 2020 for that matter. And those turned out to be tough fire seasons. So I'm glad that we ended the month of April on a wet note. And by the way, the wettest April on record happened just 2 years ago, 2022. We saw over 5.5 inches of rain. So if you thought this was a tough one for rainfall, well, it can be a lot worse.
That's true. It was easy.
Yeah, it was a cakewalk.
Oh, you like this one? I did that.
I do like this
just
one, Mark.
For the 10 o'clock show last night. I put together this, or I mean, I should say I resurrected it from a couple of years ago.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Oh, that just shows, if you're not watching, it just shows the number of days where we had measurable rain since the beginning of meteorological spring, which is March 1st to now. So 2 months, 61. Yeah, 61 days. How many of those days did we have measurable rain? And you really see, we go back through the last 6, 7, 9 springs. Typically, we have 35 days. That's a long-term average. And this year we had about 28, I think, 28 days or 29 days. And then you can see, oh my gosh, Katie. She made it on, folks. We have a new guest. We'll see if she has her audio working. Look, you can just see her brain working so hard, trying to figure out how to hit that space button or whatever to get the audio working. It usually takes me a while. I'm going to keep talking, and then Katie will burst on. But anyway, the point is, you can see each spring is different. Sometimes we have fewer dry days. Sometimes we have more dry days. Here's the extremes. Back in 2021, we had only 19 days with measurable rain out of those 60 days. Less than a third of the days were wet. Yet in 2017, I think we had 47 days out of the 60. I mean, people were just going nuts. That year because it was just so consistently wet.
Mark, what would you consider a good soaker amount of rain in 24 hours?
Oh, I heard you on this one. I disagreed. You talked about this last week. I think you said a quarter inch.
What do you think?
All right.
What do you think is a good soaker?
Well, maybe it depends on the time of the year. Maybe I'd say a half inch. A good soaker for me says the ground gets really soaked nicely, which is
that's a guy that lives essentially in a rainforest. Mark Nelson.
Yeah, maybe. And your point is well taken. I mean, I don't know. A quarter of an inch is only going to go that far down into the soil. It's not going to do much.
It'll help the grass a little.
Yeah.
Anywho, what I'm trying to get at is I think it would be interesting to create a graphic how many soaking or soaker days days of soakers we've seen. Like we could establish a quarter inch, a half an inch, whatever you think is
right.
Good. And that would be interesting to see how many days we average in springtime and where we're at in these various years.
Yeah, just a thought. The point is, boy, each spring is different. And a lot of times, one April is going to be a wet one. The next April is a dry one, yet May is wet or dry. You know, it seems so random sometimes. Long-term trend is either slightly wetter or pretty much even. And you go back 100 years, there's not a significant trend in spring rainfall in Portland. Maybe slightly higher. I think that's what I saw. Slightly wetter than it used to be, but not dramatically different. I remember some dry springs and lots of wet springs.
And we would assume potentially that with a warmer climate that can hold more moisture, that maybe we would be trending wetter.
That would make sense.
But it's interesting that you haven't seen much. We should include those stats sometime. I would be curious to just kind of look at that, even though there isn't much of a trend that you're saying.
Yeah, you can never have too many stats. So, Katie, I know it looks like our audio is not working. Would you blink twice if you can hear us?
Okay, Katie is just visually here.
She's here, but she's not really here. She can't. If she could hear us, she'd have a big smile, but she has an irritated look. She doesn't even know we're talking about her. Now she's gone. Okay, moving on.
Okay. All right. Let's
she's
move
gone.
On. Well, that was pretty brief. All right.
Okay.
Late season snow. Yeah, with rain, cool weather, typically that means mountain snow. So
yeah,
I
love this
last Thursday morning. This was actually the image that we used in the last episode of the Fox 12 Weather podcast.
Those pallets.
Yeah, what's up with those pallets?
Maybe it's when it's marginal to keep get the snow accumulating above the mud. I don't understand. I'll have to ask Karen up at Ski Bowl what's up with the pallets.
Maybe it's a mud pit and that's how they walk around the mud pit. They step on those. Okay, so for the listeners, we're showing the view last Thursday at the base area of Ski Bowl that was just featuring some patchy snow. But look at the change to this morning.
Wow, big improvement.
Nice improvement there, yeah.
A lot of snow.
No doubt about it. Even though skiing and snowboarding is done for the season out there at Ski Bowl, and this is the last weekend for Meadows.
Actually, I think they're not doing weekdays for now, but I think they have 3 weekends coming up.
Oh, they have 3 weekends? I know they're doing the pond skim this weekend.
Yeah, don't you be trying to shut down those ski areas too early, Jeff. Gosh, you have a lot of authority in the Weather Center, but you can't just make unilateral business decisions for people on the mountain.
Timberline, you're open. Yep. You're open forever. Yeah. All right.
They often stay. In the past, at least, they would stay open almost year round. So.
All right. Keeping on the subject of pictures up at the ski resorts. Yeah, beautiful shot this morning. The clouds, briefly cleared out. They kind of moved back in a little while after this. But yeah, snowflock trees. Just such a dramatic change since late last week. And Timberline. So glad that Timberline is still there after that fire, by the way.
I guess it's
Mark, have you been on the podcast since that fire actually happened? Because I know we were texting about it.
No, I was on vacation. And, that was when you were working that night for me. And things got exciting for the newsies.
What are the odds that I work like one night out of the year and just so happens that Timberline has
almost burned down?
Yeah, that was really nerve wracking. Actually, I think all of us were
like, no,
sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's about 2 to 3 feet of new snow. I don't know the exact. Over the past few days, we've seen about 2 to 3 feet of new snow in the higher elevations of Mount Hood. So, great stuff. And kind of alluding to the forecast, there's more to come. This was April 29th. We started to see quite the change in the northeast quadrant of the state, if you will, with below normal snowpack. The John Day Basin dropped below half of its normal snowpack.
Warm and dry April. Did that.
Look at that. Look at this morning. Yeah, quite the improvement as we wrapped up the month of April. And considering the forecast, those numbers should improve a little bit more.
Yeah, I figure it's always good, kind of like early season snow. It's always good to maybe get some right at the end to kind of top things off.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, we haven't shown this graphic. The reservoirs, I just checked them yesterday. All the Willamette Valley, Willamette Basin reservoirs are in pretty good shape.
We are actually going to touch on that.
Yeah.
We're going to be touching on that in a little bit. Yeah. You're going to like what I included here, Mark.
Okay.
All right. Unsettled weather continues. We talked about that. I would expect at least another week of, on and off rain, showers, cool conditions, cooler than normal conditions, some warmer, some colder days. All right. This is Wednesday morning's visible satellite loop. So if you're joining us at a later time, this is just for reference what we're looking at here.
You've really upped your game, Jeff, because we didn't often used to put satellite loops in here. I know I'm big into the model loops, but
the model loops have been crashing the podcast. So
you're just not doing them. Well, Jeff is in control today. So
I am.
By the way, if there's any issue, email him with complaints. Jeff is driving, as we say, driving the graphics. I think you're doing a great job, but I don't know. I'll have to see what the issue is because it has worked well for me.
All right. Well, maybe we'll give you a shot at it soon enough. Okay. Mark, we are in between weather systems. You can see one system moving off to the east. Can you see the next trough? Can you see my cursor right here?
Yep, I can.
You can kind of see
it. Is that a low pressure center maybe under the clouds? Possibly something's going on in there.
Something's digging in. Yeah. I think we have weak high pressure down to the southwest. That's kind of steering those clouds in. But yeah, this trough is moving in here, and you can see it on the upper level chart right there. Mm-hmm. There's the system that just impacted us. That's moving over the interior northwest and the upper Intermountain West. So this next feature right here is going to slide in between late tonight and tomorrow morning. In fact, we'll take it into Thursday morning. You can kind of see it sliding over the Pacific Northwest right here. It's not going to be a very impressive system, and most of the rain and high elevation snow is going to fall while we're asleep.
And to our south.
Yeah, exactly.
In Oregon, almost nothing in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, the farther north you live, like north of the metro, I mean, you may end up with less than 1/10 of an inch of rain out of this.
Right.
And farther south, like Eugene, may end up getting over 1/2 inch of rain.
These are really fast-moving systems, these last three. They just come flying on through. In spring, we don't, and I mentioned this on air last night, KPTV, Fox 12, Oregon. I was mentioning how we don't often get big organized weather systems, from this point forward until fall. We tend to get little things that move through quickly, or disturbed areas of weather that just kind of sit over us and give us the showers. But
what's kind of going on is this ridge offshore, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Those systems are kind of riding over the top of them and just kind of accelerating over the ridge. So that's tomorrow morning. The system is essentially moving out of here, and I think most of the day Thursday is going to be dry. So tonight into Thursday morning, like before sunrise, we'll have a little bit of rain west of the Cascades, and then it's out of here for the most part.
A lot of sunshine, by the way, tomorrow afternoon compared to today where we have a lot of clouds. Tomorrow afternoon looks like a lot of sunshine. I mean, a tiny chance for a shower, but most of those showers seem to want to be over the mountains when they pop
Exactly.
up. So
higher terrain. Yeah.
A lot more blue tomorrow.
I bumped up our temperature a little bit to 65, I think so, for Thursday afternoon.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say that my fruit trees are in full bloom now, and I need a sunny day or two, or else there's going to, you don't want a week and a half of solid rain up here and in the 40s and low 50s, or else I won't have any apples because the bees don't get a chance to get out. So tomorrow, I hope those bees are working hard tomorrow.
Nobody at home is going to care about this, but just for Mark's information.
Yeah, it was only for me.
The bigger tree, the 2 apple trees in my backyard.
Oh, yeah.
The bigger tree had like 4 flowers on it. And then the smaller tree is covered in flowers. So I think our smaller tree is going to be the big producer this year.
Well, remember, we're going to have to thin them. I'm going to have to tell you about you can't let them all hang on there.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, yeah. Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry. We have breaking news from Katie. Okay, she's not going to be joining us. The video wasn't. Why? Never mind. She just on the text. She isn't going to show up. I mean, She did show up, but she's gone. So we love you, Katie, but we'll see you next week.
I got to give it her. She tried her darndest to be in the last 2 podcasts. She's going to get in one of these days.
Next week. Week.
All right. So we talked about tonight into Thursday morning. We get a round of rain and mountain snow. Then it's out of here. Thursday afternoon through Friday morning looks dry as what we call a transient ridge of high pressure builds over.
Big words.
Slides over.
Good.
And what we mean by that is we're not going to have a high pressure system stall for 5 to 7 days, bringing us a heat wave and a dry stretch of weather. This is going to last for all of 24 hours or so. So Thursday afternoon through Friday morning, we're dry, and then you can see what's already digging in over the northeast Pacific Ocean. This one's going to pack a bit more of a punch, I think. This is going to be a significant trough of low pressure diving in, and
it's juicy.
That's
what I
juicy.
noticed.
There's no doubt about it that it is juicy. So just kind of a quick screenshot of what we're expecting Friday afternoon into the nighttime hours. There's going to be a slow moving cold front, it looks like, that's going to bring a lot of moisture into Western Oregon and Western Washington. So expect steady rain, multiple hours of steady rain. Notice there's not a lot of blue on this map, Mark.
Yeah.
So those are the snow levels are going to be rising quite a bit, which we'll get into in a second. So this is initially going to be a lot of rain, even through the Cascade Passes. This is the rain forecast. I excluded this next system, and this is just the time frame between Friday and Sunday morning. So Friday, Saturday into Sunday morning. And this is gonna, I mean, we're gonna be playing a little bit of catch up in the rainfall department here.
Even if it's off by 50%, I mean, let's say it's going to 50% high, that's still about an inch of rain, which is more than we've had since, I don't know, sometime in March.
Right, absolutely. 3/4 of an inch to maybe an inch and a half seems reasonable from the coast into our western valleys. This is, by the way, this is just the European model. This is not an ensemble outlook. This is the deterministic model of the 0Z run last night. But yeah, and look at the red shade up in the Cascades and parts of the Coast Range, maybe 2 inches or more of precipitation out there.
I was going to point out Portland's water supply, the Bull Run watershed on the kind of northwest section of Mount Hood, kind of off the northwest slopes. So the Bull Run watershed, they told me this years ago, the water managers, that snowpack is big. I mean, snowpack helps because, snowpack melts in the spring like now, and then it goes into the reservoirs. But a far bigger thing for that specific watershed is these spring rainfalls, because all this water goes right into the reservoir. So these spring rainfalls are actually really important. So that'll be very helpful in case for some reason we have an extra dry season.
And if you don't quite remember where that watershed is, we actually had a wildfire burning last season, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
There.
August.
So we were referring to that quite a bit. Okay, so that is just like the rainfall outlook for that 2 to 3 day period. Basically Friday to Sunday morning. Expect a lot of indoor time during that stretch. I included a snip of the area forecast discussion this morning from the National Weather Service, Mark. I'm going to read it out loud. Currently, hydrologic ensemble forecast systems, I believe, guidance shows all rivers across Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington having a less than 5% chance of reaching action stage. However, we still continue to monitor the potential for hydro impacts to our rivers. Flood control reservoirs are now full for summer water supply, so the Willamette River can be more susceptible to flooding now. Those with river interests should continue to monitor the forecast over the next few days. So I know you referred to our reservoirs earlier in the podcast, and while we're not expecting flooding, we're not like facing this high threat of flooding. It's important to note that our reservoirs are full, and there's not a lot of room in case we were to enter a much wetter pattern. That could pose some issues down the road.
It's interesting, a little factoid here. I guess that's why we have a podcast. The only even with there's 13 reservoirs within the Willamette Basin. After the 1964 flood, a lot of them were built. But that still only controls about 35% of the flow of the river, because a lot comes out of the Coast Range where there are a few reservoirs, and a lot of it streams come in below those reservoirs. So it's still only 35%. So in the winter, I always think of that like, if there was a massive flood and the reservoirs for some reason were close to full, that's always a problem.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I included this because I knew you would have a tidbit or two regarding our reservoir.
I got lots of tidbits stuck up here in this brain, but the problem is every time I add a few, some others have to go out the other side, right? And then I forget things. I'm getting older. Yeah.
All right, so I mentioned that the snow level will rise as that rain arrives in the warm sector of the system, but look at what we're expecting as we head into Saturday and Sunday. That snow level, if you follow that orange line, gives us a ballpark idea of where it's going to go. And I mean, it's going to be down near where it's been over the past couple of days, down to maybe about 3,000 feet or so. So I think coldest times of the day, perhaps Saturday night into Sunday morning, we could have at least partially snow-covered passes.
Somebody asked me on Twitter, I think yesterday. I'm sorry, it's X, but Twitter. It's always going to be Twitter. Somebody asked me if this is unusual to have the late season snow, and I said, no, not really. I mean, it's kind of near the latter end of when we expect snow up there at the passes. But I can remember several instances of like an actual snowstorm in May up there. So now It's not unusual. Some years it happens, some years it doesn't.
By the way, I made mention that we might declare a first alert weather day. One of those days, maybe Saturday, just because of a lot more mountain snow. It's past setted tire season. It just brings more awareness. So we're reserving the right to do that. And
we've made a reservation with the first alert weather system just in case.
That's right.
We've booked it.
That's right. We don't want to surprise you too much.
A deposit.
All right. I gave in, Mark, and I used your snow graphic with your legend, with your colors.
Well, yeah, it works pretty well in this case, I think.
Yeah, it does.
There aren't too many colors there.
Right. So considering we'll initially start with relatively high snow levels as the rain arrives on Friday, the bulk of the snow should fall above 5,000 feet. That puts Timberline back into the significant snow zone.
Yeah.
I would say another 1 to 2 feet is certainly possible and likely between Friday and Sunday.
I think so. That looks good.
And I think Government Camp maybe 6 to 10 inches, which is great on top of the snow that we've already had. So.
I forget what the average for May is at Government Camp. I think the April average is about 30 inches at Government Camp, but May is like 10 or 15 inches, I think, the 30-year average for snowfall. Okay. So we'll see. We may make it all up just in one weekend, which is not unusual when we do get that snow because it's usually early in the month.
So I figure since we're on the subject of forecasting, I would show you the National Blend of Models temperature outlook. So this is not exact. This is not our official forecast. This just gives you an idea of where Portland may go in the next 7 to 10 days. And of course, with the unsettled pattern for the next week or so, I would expect highs in the 60s and 50s. But then at the end of the second week of May, so late next week, there are more than hints coming in that things are going to be trending warmer and drier. And I mean, you can see on the National Blend of Models, Friday, Saturday, highs near 70 degrees or so. Mm-hmm. So that's just the start. We're going to go deeper into this part.
Oh, I like this one better. Not because I swear, not because it's the Euro, but I see more of a gap beginning to appear.
Totally. So, Mark, I'll let you take this one away because I did it last week, and I think it's better to have, a different perspective on how to digest this data.
So we're looking at the European Ensemble average. This is the average of 50 members, 24-hour QPF, which would be rain or snow. In this case, it's rain. This is specifically for PDX. A few things to point out. One is the big on the top of the top of the chart. The chart here is each horizontal line is one of those 50 members. So you've got 50 different versions of the same model. It's tweaked a little bit to get a slightly different output. And then at the bottom is the average of all those members. But at the top, a few things to point out. One is Jeff is going to put the cursor right over the blue and the right over Saturday, really Friday afternoon through Saturday morning, 24-hour total. A lot of rain there. That's what we were just talking about. But I do also notice showers continue. I mean, every single Ensemble member has some sort of showers through at least Wednesday of next week.
That's right.
But then you kind of see, and he has it highlighted. Jeff's got it highlighted in yellow here, Friday through Thursday. I'm sorry, Friday, starting the end of next week, I should say. Yep. A lot of members go dry. So yes, folks, there is hope because we don't want to just go for 2 weeks straight and say there's no hope for warm and dry weather at any point here in the next 2 weeks. We think something might be up, fingers crossed, for the end of next week.
You know what's great, Mark, is last week, Camilla and I were looking at this data. Obviously, it was a week ago, but these ensembles were hinting at the same thing, like mid to late week of the second week of May, something was up. Drier weather, maybe some warmer stretches. So
everything
now
has moved forward a week now. Now we're a week later, and now it's come well into view. Oh yeah, same with the GFS. GFS ensembles look very similar. So that makes us feel a little more confident. Now things can change. We've seen that 100 times. But we say, if we're going to leave you with some hope here, some hopium. Jeff is like, what the heck?
Hopium for a dream?
Some hopium for some sunshine. There you go, folks. We think later, the end of it's possible. Yes, this weekend is very wet. It's possible that second weekend of May, the 11th and the 12th, might be okay. Maybe. So everybody just say your little thoughts and prayers for that maybe.
Look at this temperature outlook.
Oh, things
going up. Isn't this interesting? Yeah. And we'll get to your 850 millibar chart here in a second, but I want you to focus on the same time frame that we were talking about. Late next week, around Friday, maybe into the early part of the following week.
Good Lord, look at the control run.
I know.
So what
look how high that goes.
Yeah, that's just that's one of the 50 members, a control run. It has 850s above 15, that's like well into the 80s.
I figured we just say the possibility of 15 degrees Celsius temperatures at 5,000 feet are possible. We won't go beyond that just yet. And then the GFS is hinting at something similar, maybe a day or two.
Something's up. That could be our first 80s. We hate to jump out that far.
I think so.
10 to 15 days from now, we could have our first 80s.
So this is Mark's famous chart, the 850 millibar chart, where you can kind of correlate between the 5,000 degree temperatures and what it might be down at the surface.
5,000 foot.
5,000 foot, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I circled just the kind of the region that we might fall into, 10 to 15 degrees Celsius temperatures at 5,000 feet, corresponding to maybe somewhere between 75 to 85. Again, earlier in the podcast, we mentioned we haven't hit 80 degrees yet. Typically that arrives early May, and it's looking like we could be on the way to our first 80. I think
so. Quick note, you look at the top there, the time, I input this by hand just the way it works, but this covers 1997 to 2019, every single day in each May. And sometimes on some of these charts, when we show them, you'll say, like, how come you stopped in 2015? Like, how come you don't show the last 4 years or whatever? What I found was when I did this and I update it, if I had more than 10 to 15 years, the line doesn't change. The average, the best fit, the regression line, we call it, doesn't really move. So I just kind of stopped. When we have really extreme circumstances like June 2021, I have redone it. But so gives you a good idea of what could happen. So plus 15, if you had east wind, you can get as high as 90 if everything's perfect in Portland.
Jeff, me.
You?
I'm speaking in third person.
Third person.
I'm thinking about this because long after you retire, Mark, I'm still going to be referring to these charts. And it's good to know that I don't have to update it every year.
I'm going to have to pass those on someday when I retire. I'm sure it's a long ways away. But I'll have to pass these on. It'll be like in a little chest of gold plated.
Who's to say, who says that I haven't taken pictures of them and saved them in my phone? In an album. Mark's 850 millibar charts.
Good move. Well,
we're in the digital age now.
I'll just give you the Excel file. Jeez.
All right. Let's get into El Nino. Where are we headed, Mark? You uploaded a ton of graphics here.
We'll go through them quickly because I see time is counting down. So,
sure
summary. So right now we are. Oh, could you added this one? Because I don't. Oh, I did have this one. I'm sorry.
Yep.
El Nino advisory still continues. So we're in an El Nino technically still. There's a La Nina watch out by NOAA. So El Nino conditions are still observed, as we'll see. But a transition from El Nino to neutral, which is between the two in the tropical Pacific, is likely by over these next 2 or 3 months. And the odds of La Nina developing by midsummer are about 60%. And they go higher than that later on. We use this area in the Pacific, lower left of the picture there. This Nino 3.4 region, it's all about sea surface temperatures for this sea surface temperatures there. And that correlates with the graph on the right, the Nino 3.4, the second one down on the right. And see where we peaked in November, December, January, and now we've dropped off. And then back to the left, the highlighted number under Nino 3.4 is 0.8 degrees centigrade, which means it's 0.8 degrees above average. Did I just say centigrade? I mean Celsius. And so as long as we're above 0.5, it's technically still El Nino, but it's fading quickly. El Nino is near the end. Okay, so this also shows that the left is the current subsurface temperature anomalies. We're going the right, on the chart on the left, you see basically you're looking across the Pacific from the far western Pacific on the left side to the far eastern Pacific, Peru, Ecuador on the right side, and then you're looking down into the ocean, down several hundred meters. And you can see there's a lot of cooler than average water that's now beginning to surface. In fact, right there, it says over the last couple of months, negative subsurface temperature anomalies have strengthened across the equatorial Pacific. I have circled the fading warm anomalies. Compare on the upper right where I have it circled. That was from early March. Look at how much warm water was still across the Pacific in the higher up, and then compare that to on the left, the 23rd of April. And you can see how the warm water is fading away, the cold water is taking over, which is pretty interesting because when you look at the models, no, that's okay. We can go to the models.
Okay.
This shows a whole bunch of predictions for the ENSO state, this plus or negative, 3.4 region. When you look at the models, typically in spring, it's called the spring forecast barrier. and models have not been very good in the spring. So often we kind of ignore March, April, May, and then once we get to June, July, August, the models kind of settle down. I forget the reasoning for that, but things are often in flux during that time. But it's interesting because if we do end up going to a La Nina, models have been forecasting this perfectly for many months, saying, hey, we're probably headed to neutral this summer and then La Nina. I'm not going to go over all the details in that chart, but you can see they all go downhill. Once we get to the negative 0.5, once we go to there, then it's La Nina. On -1, which I have highlighted in yellow, that's a moderate El Nino, La Nina, moderate La Nina. And a lot of models go to moderate La Nina, so we'll see. But the point is, we're pretty confident El Nino's dying. We're headed towards a La Nina probably for fall and winter of next 2024 and 2025.
What could that mean? Could mean a lot of things.
We got all next fall to talk about it. And I'm not in the mood to discuss La Nina otherwise. Or actually, we're out of time. That's why. So this is a seasonal temperature outlook from NOAA. Interesting, huh, Jeff? That they've got May, June, July above average. A greater chance of being above average, leaning towards above average temps. This also includes, if you look above, the seasonal outlooks combine the effects of soil moisture and long-term trends. So if we've been running warmer than normal most summers, late springs, that's factoring in as well. Climate change.
Yep. Interesting stuff.
That's your El Nino update. We'll update El Nino probably every month.
For sure.
See what's going on in La Nina.
Yeah, because it can have big implications on how our winter plays out here in the Pacific Northwest. All right, we're going to wrap up this podcast with a couple of viewer photos. This one came in April 26th. I thought this was pretty nice. This was sent in by Dustin Johnson. Thanks to Dustin for sending in this double rainbow with the passing shower over Portland.
That one is extra neat because usually when we get those photos, either regular rainbow or double, you don't see it not make it to the ground. I like how it just fades away into the background.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But it's so sharp there on the middle left.
Yeah, I wonder if like the West Hills was blocking, like the sun was setting, and it was just the beam
you're
was
right.
up into the sky, and
Could be something like that, or just a cloud in the way.
Something like that. Yeah,
that's neat. Thank you, Dustin. That's really good stuff.
And then thanks to Jane for sending in a picture of her pups who were enjoying the snow this morning up at government camp. Jane is an avid viewer that sends us great photos of government camp and what's going on Mount Hood.
Happy dogs.
Yeah, they love the snow. So yeah, best way again to send in those photos, kptv.com/weather. It just gets us through the loopholes that we need to get through in order to
the lawyers,
Yeah, all that jazz. So, all right, Mark, that's about it. My brother's getting married this weekend, so I will be out of here for a little while.
Yeah, you're going to be gone for a while.
Yeah.
We're going to miss you, Jeff.
You're going to do episode 99.5 next week.
We think so, because we think we need the whole team here for episode 100. So it's 99B, I guess it would be, for next week.
Fair enough.
And we're hoping for 1 or 2 special guests. I have a commitment from one special guest that has been on this podcast in the past. Ooh. And we're hoping for a second one, who I didn't contact yet, so I guess I better get on that.
Yeah, I think I know who those people are, but we'll reserve that until we get to the episode. Thanks to everybody for joining us for the 99th episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. And yeah, hunker down. It's going to be kind of wet this weekend, but hopefully warmer and drier weather will return late next week. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
You're waiting and hesitating, and tell us, please tell us.